On his 30th birthday, Harry felt depressed because he hadn't achieved his goals. He wrote his unfinished wishes on a piece of paper, tied them to a cluster of balloons, and released them into the sky. A few days later, a girl named Nina called. "I found your balloons. You seem to be having some trouble, but I think your wishes are very sweet." Harry and Nina met. Nina, who had experienced many setbacks, helped Harry look at life more lightly. They did something romantic together, writing new goals and releasing them into the sky together. Happy ending. They realized small goals and got married, turning lofty wishes into shared realities. On his 30th birthday, Harry felt like a complete failure. The grand plans he had for his 20s, a best-selling novel, the trip around the world, the thriving startup had all fizzled out. Staring at his reflection, he saw not the man he'd hoped to become, but just ... Harry, frustrated and a little heartbroken. He grabbed a piece of paper and scribbled down all his unfulfilled dreams. He wrote about the book he never finished, the mountains he never climbed, and the love he never found. It was a list of could-have-beens and should-have-beens. Then, he did something a little strange. He bought a huge cluster of colorful balloons, tied his list of regrets to them, and went to a nearby hill. As the sun began to set, he let them go, watching as his unfulfilled wishes floated away into the vast, indifferent sky. It was a symbolic gesture, a way of letting go, but it felt more like an admission of defeat. He went home, feeling emptier than before. A few days passed. Life went on, just as mundane as ever. Then, one afternoon, his phone rang with an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. A cheerful voice on the other end said, "Hi, is this Harry?" He confirmed, a little confused. "My name is Nina," she continued, "and this is going to sound crazy, but I think I found your balloons." Harry was speechless. The balloons had traveled over 100 miles, landing in a park where Nina was walking her dog. She'd found the paper, still attached. "I read your list," she said gently. "You seem to be going through a tough time. But you know, I didn't see a list of failures. I saw a list of really beautiful, sweet wishes. Anyone who wants to write a novel and see the world has a pretty amazing heart." Harry was floored. A total stranger had found his most private confessions and, instead of judging him, had offered kindness. He agreed to meet her for coffee, mostly out of sheer curiosity. Nina was just as bright and warm in person as she was on the phone. She had a smile that could light up a room and eyes that seemed to understand everything. As they talked, Harry learned that Nina's life hadn't been a walk in the park either. She'd faced her own share of setbacks, a failed business, a broken engagement, dreams that had to be put on hold. But unlike Harry, she didn't carry them like a heavy weight. She spoke of her challenges with a lightness, a sense of humor, and an unshakable belief that things would eventually work out. "Life isn't a race, Harry," she told him, stirring her latte. "It's more like a dance. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow, and sometimes you just stumble around for a bit. The important thing is to keep moving and enjoy the music." Her perspective was a breath of fresh air. For the first time in a long time, Harry felt a flicker of hope. He started spending more time with Nina. She showed him how to find joy in the small things, the taste of a perfectly brewed coffee, the beauty of a sunset, the laughter shared between friends. She encouraged him to start writing again, not for a bestseller, but just for the love of it. She didn't dismiss his big dreams, she just helped him see them differently. They weren't looming mountains of pressure, but distant, beautiful stars to guide him. He learned to appreciate the journey, not just the destination. One sunny afternoon a few months later, they found themselves back on the same hill where Harry had released his balloons. This time they had a new list, but it wasn't a list of regrets. It was a list of new goals, new adventures they wanted to share. Some were big, like traveling to Japan. Some were small, like learning to bake bread together. And some were deeply personal, like be brave enough to love again. They tied this new list to another cluster of balloons, but this time, the feeling was completely different. It wasn't about letting go of failures. It was about sending hope out into the universe. As they watched the balloons float away, hand in hand, Harry realized his 30th birthday wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. The years that followed were filled with the quiet, beautiful work of turning those wishes into reality. They didn't achieve everything overnight. The novel wasn't published right away, and the trip to Japan took a few years of saving, but they did learn to bake bread, and it was often hilariously misshapen but always delicious. They took weekend trips to nearby mountains, finding adventure just a few hours from home. They fell in love, deeply and truly. On Harry's 35th birthday, they stood on that same hill again. This time there were no balloons. Instead, Harry held a small box. He got down on one knee and asked Nina to be his partner in turning all their future wishes into shared realities. She said yes, of course. Their lofty dreams didn't just disappear into the sky. They came back down to earth, transformed into a life they built together, one small, joyful step at a time. They found that maturity wasn't about checking items off a list by a certain age. It was about finding someone to hold your hand, release your fears, and chase new dreams with, no matter how high they seem to fly. Do you think this is a reasonable explanation? If you find it funny, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.